Hello, my dear friend. I want to start with a question that has been sitting in my mind lately. What if nothing went wrong? I know, it sounds ridiculous at first, because if you're anything like me, you can probably think of a dozen moments right away that felt like they went very, very wrong. The relationship that ended, the opportunity that disappeared, the year that seemed to fall apart, the version of yourself you thought you would become by now. Sometimes I look back at certain periods of my life and I can still feel the frustration of them. Not even the pain, really, just the frustration. That feeling of standing somewhere you never planned to be and thinking, how did I end up here? Maybe you've felt that too. You make a plan, you work toward it, you imagine how things are supposed to unfold, and then life takes a turn that wasn't in the script. A door closes, someone leaves, something you've invested months or years into changes, and from that moment forward, you begin telling yourself a story. The story usually sounds like this. That was the moment everything went wrong. But lately, I've been wondering about that. Not because I'm trying to be positive, not because I'm trying to put a spiritual label on every difficult experience, just because when I look back honestly, some things I once called disasters don't look the same anymore. And that's strange. Have you ever noticed that? A moment can feel devastating while you're living through it. And then 1 month or 1 year, or even 5 years later, you realize it quietly redirected your life. I remember someone years ago who was still angry about losing a job. And honestly, they had every reason to be. At the time it felt unfair, unexpected, embarrassing. The kind of thing that keeps you awake at night replaying everything. But then they said something interesting. They told me that if they hadn't lost that job, they never would have moved. If they hadn't moved, they never would have met the people who became their closest friends. And if they hadn't met those people, they wouldn't have met the person they eventually married. One event, one moment that seemed completely wrong, and yet years later, it was impossible to separate that ending from everything that followed. Now, that doesn't mean every painful experience is secretly wonderful. I'm not saying that. Some experiences hurt, some losses stay with us. But maybe the bigger question is this: how many times have we judged a story before it was finished? Think about that. How many times have we stood in the middle of a chapter and assumed we knew the ending? It's a human thing to do. We see one piece of the puzzle and try to understand everything. We lose something and assume we know what it means. We experience delay and assume we know where life is heading. We encounter silence and assume nothing is happening. But life rarely explains itself in real time. That's what makes it so difficult, and maybe that's what makes it beautiful too. Because some of the most important moments only become clear in hindsight. While they were happening, they looked ordinary, or confusing, or like mistakes. I think about that whenever I remember my younger self. The person who thought certain goals would solve everything. The person who believed happiness was on the other side of one achievement, one relationship, one breakthrough. And when those things didn't happen, I treated it like evidence. Evidence that I was lost. Evidence that I had missed something. Evidence that something had gone off track. But looking back now, I'm not so sure. Because many of the qualities I'm grateful for today were built during seasons I never would have chosen. Patience wasn't built during easy periods. Perspective wasn't built during easy periods. Strength wasn't built during easy periods. And neither was wisdom. Those things arrived slowly, almost quietly, while I was wishing I could skip ahead. Maybe you've done that too. Maybe there was a season you tried to escape, a season you thought had nothing valuable in it, and maybe now you can see it was shaping something you couldn't yet recognize, not because it was pleasant or easy, but because it forced you to become someone different. And that brings me back to the question, what if nothing went wrong? Not in the sense that everything was ideal or even good at the moment, but in the sense that perhaps life was doing more than we could see. Perhaps the chapter you judged most harshly was never meant to be understood while you were inside it. Perhaps some roads only reveal their purpose after you've walked them. And perhaps there are things in your past you're still calling failures, even though their story isn't finished yet. Maybe that's worth considering, because sometimes the meaning of an experience changes long before the memory of it does, and sometimes interruptions end up shaping everything. Maybe that's why it's so difficult to judge life while living it. We're too close to it. It's like standing an inch away from a painting and trying to see the whole image. All you see is one color, one brushstroke, one small section. And because that's all we see, we assume that's all there is. Life feels like that sometimes, especially in moments you didn't choose. A setback, a transition, a season where nothing makes sense. When you're in it, it feels permanent. That's the strange thing about difficult periods. They feel like they'll last forever, even when they don't. I remember a time in my life when I thought a chapter would never end. Looking back now, I can barely remember how long it lasted. But while I was living it, it felt endless. Maybe you've felt that too. A month feels like a year. A year feels like a decade. You wait for clarity, and instead, you get questions. You wait for certainty, and instead, you get silence. And if you're not careful, you start building stories from that silence. When we don't know what's happening, our minds rush to explain it. Sometimes those explanations help. Sometimes they become cages. And later, we realize we spent so much energy believing things that were never facts. Just fears, just assumptions, just incomplete conclusions. We all create pictures of how life should unfold, but life rarely asks for our approval before changing the picture. And maybe that's where peace begins, not in knowing everything and definitely not in having every answer, but in becoming a little less certain that every unexpected event is a mistake, a little less certain that every closed door is a tragedy, a little less certain that every delay is a failure. Because reality is more complicated than the story we're telling ourselves. Often better, but usually more surprising. And I think that's what I want to leave you with today. Not a conclusion or a promise, just a question. The next time you replay a painful chapter, the next time you call something wasted time, the next time you think everything would have been better if one thing changed, pause and consider that you don't have all the information yet. Consider you're too close to the painting. Consider that a chapter can feel confusing without being wrong. And consider that some things you're calling failures are still unfolding. I don't know what came to mind while listening. Maybe a relationship or a career or a decision you've questioned for years. Whatever it is, be gentle with yourself. Because we're all trying to understand life while living it. And that's not easy. Maybe that's why the older I get, the less I ask whether everything happened according to plan, and the more I ask a different question. What if the story isn't finished? What if there's still more to understand? And maybe the story was never broken, just unfinished.